This video is going to be a film study look at slash commentary at the Ravens' most recent offensive line signing, in this case, veteran tackle Joe Noteboom, a guy who played with the Rams and has played left tackle and right tackle split time there and certainly suffered through a number of injuries. I'm going to preface this film with saying that, veteran tackle was obviously needed. I think that's clear. Even if perhaps Emory Jones stays at tackle, Vincent just does not look ready to me for the NFL, despite, being a big, strong guy with long arms and a lot of ability. Having played left tackle and right tackle, this makes sense for Noteboom. The guard situation, if Jones moves to guard, if Jones stays at tackle, excuse me, Falele, Cleveland, and that's about it. You do have Garrett Dellinger as well, with Samek being a backup center. So this still seems like a really thin O-line to me. I will be up front. You're welcome to agree or disagree. Being as the Ravens just finished the NFL draft, this could seem like a no-risk signing to some people. It adds depth, another experienced tackle. I get it. Someone with a long history in the NFL. He came out of TCU in 2018, I believe. He's also got a lot of injuries that you can look up. Only played 4 games in 2024. At this point, I'm sure that you've researched and done your own information. Took this weekend to basically step away from football film and spend time with the family. Another thought that I have here after watching film late Sunday night into early Monday morning was we just had 11 picks in the draft. I guess we thought no one in the draft besides Vincent was worth taking as a tackle, since Emory Jones apparently is moving to guard, according to what I think Harbaugh said. If you compare him, Noteboom, to Vincent, clearly he's more game ready, even though he only played 4 games in 2024. What I do think is interesting is he did play in week 17 and 18 against the Cardinals and the Seahawks, and then didn't play in either one of their playoff games. I don't think he was injured. I just think they chose not to play him. So I do find that interesting. We went this route instead of attempting to find a tackle in the draft. I know that tackles don't grow on trees, and you don't normally find tackles in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round who can be effective. So we did bring in a ton of UDFAs. Maybe the idea is bring in or find a guard there to build or establish more depth, and then let Emory Jones stay at tackle. So I think that's an interesting thought process or interesting discussion. You're welcome to have that in the comment section. I don't know if people have already, been talking about it in that way. I am left wondering by this signing what our overall plan was or is for the offensive line. Maybe the Ravens didn't think that Starks would be there in the first round. They certainly didn't think that Mike Green will be there in the second. In terms of Noteboom, before we get to the film, 2024 does not reflect well. In fact, I remembered week 1 against the Lions last year. At left tackle, it was not good. And I don't even think he finished that game, to be honest with you. I really wondered what we were doing here when I heard of the signing initially, especially at left tackle. He seems to be gauging the pass rusher. We would call him a shuffler, shorter steps at left tackle, particularly as you get to like his 3rd and 4th step. It's almost like he's trying to gauge the pass rusher's path or potential move so he can handle multiple pass rush paths or slants. But there's also a possibility that it's just 2023 versus 2024 in terms of how effective he was. I couldn't show 2024 film on YouTube, obviously, but I do have cut-ups from 2023 that actually reflects a little bit better than last year does. So the first game I was able to find film of was one that we actually played against the Rams in 2023. Obviously, a 37-31 overtime win on the punt return by Tylan Wallace. So he does seem susceptible to spin moves at times. Not that Van Noy's is the greatest in the world. He's not gaining a ton of ground here, but Aiden Hutchinson hit him with 3 of them in week 1 last year. In this case, he kind of handles it, better than he did with Hutchinson last season. It's a great throw by Stafford and Demarcus Robinson, the ex-Raven, with a great catch there. And a penalty on Marcus Williams. Look, I have to tell you, 2 of the most egregious DPI calls in this game after rewatching it. And along with that ridiculous penalty on Williams, who's going low. I mean, how do you predict, know where the receiver's going to catch the ball and turn? It was about as weird a game to watch again as I could imagine. Do yourself a favor. Don't go back and watch that one or many other former Ravens or older Ravens games unless you're up for frustration, because there were so many wide receivers wide open for the Rams on simple motions, as well as some really weird penalty calls like that one. Like I said, he's a lot more shuffly as a left tackle in pass pro. I don't know or pretend to know which ankle, lower leg has been the source of all the injuries, but he seems to be quicker in his pass sets, more decisive, just balanced as a right tackle. Here they're all stepping to the overload side. You can see that Van Noy, Matabike, and Michael Pierce, along with Patrick Queen, are all set up to that side. Glitch blitz, Matabike and Pierce dropping out. Queen unable to get anything accomplished because of the chip by the tight end. And Noteboom handles the inside move by Van Noy because we didn't get complimentary outside rush, two Notebooms outside like you would be expecting. I don't know, like I said earlier, I don't know which foot or ankle or lower leg he's had the most injuries with. There's an Achilles injury, MCL/ACL, I think at the same time in maybe 2019. Ankle last year is what had him on the injury report so much. Curiously, he played in week 1 of 2024, sat out a ton of time, played in week 10, and then came back and played in week 17 and 18. Now, maybe in there he wasn't injured. Maybe he was healthy and just a scratch, or maybe dressed and just didn't play. I'm not sure. He sure does, like I said, seem to kick out quicker as a right tackle. So could it be that it's the right ankle that was and the right lower leg that's more of the injury history? Hence, he's able to push off stronger from the left ankle. I don't know. Feel free to research and let me know what you find in terms of the left and right leg injuries. I didn't necessarily think that it mattered in terms of this video, but because it could be 2023 versus 2024, just overall health and injuries available. The film against the Rams, like I said, we're just allowing so many open guys over the middle. In the first half, I counted 4 absolutely wide open receivers. Nothing to do with Noteboom at all, but just from a Ravens perspective, you couldn't watch it and not notice it, number one, and probably complain about it if you wouldn't watch it again, which is why I said, don't go back and watch it again for your own sake. He's not the biggest tackle. He's not the biggest offensive tackle. I think 6'5", maybe 310, 315 is what he looks like. The anchor looked better in 2023, in my opinion. Not the same in 2024. Like I said, the Rams certainly trusted him enough to put him out on the field in situations like this one against us. There's often a second engagement that he's losing. And so what I mean by that is, I wouldn't call this a loss. I don't really get into pass rush win rate anyway. I think it's an overblown statistic and also one that doesn't take into account the stunts that are being used. Basically, am I to just blindly trust pass rush win rate outside of the fact that sometimes a D end or D tackle is trying to just pick someone? What's that called? Is it called a win or a loss? If you don't tell me, how am I supposed to trust it? But it is the second engagement that he's often losing. So what I mean is, here's first contact with Robinson, and then the lockout. The second move is what is able to get Robinson clear here. It doesn't impact the play at all. Stafford's still able to throw off from a clean pocket. There actually another defensive pass interference called on this one. It was contact on Hamilton on Nakua. Nakua was like trying to take it from a post to the corner, so there's more contact there on that particular play than others that were called, and the Rams and Stafford complained about. But Stafford knew the coverage was man, and so he knew to throw it out in front. That's one of the benefits that they find in all the motion. But that's second engagement, right? I don't know how other people qualify it or describe it. It's the second time the pass rusher engages or touches the tackle or vice versa. He basically seems less agile and less able to handle the blows on that second contact. It's kind of like if you've ever played basketball and handled the ball a lot as a point guard. Multiple hand checks as you're bringing the ball up the floor. Well, in the NBA, nobody pressures the ball anymore, so it really doesn't matter there. But the great point guards, even the really good ones, they don't lose their balance no matter how many hand checks there are. It's a drill you can do to try to promote the ability to maintain your balance, maintain control of the ball, and get to where you need to be to initiate the offense. Basically, some athletes are not able to handle that second, third contact that kind of disrupts their direction. Now, this perhaps a poor comparison because we're talking about an offensive lineman compared to a point guard, but in my opinion, the validity here works because he's trying to protect a range, the pocket, and that second time that he gets contact from a defensive end or outside linebacker, basically he's at a loss of athleticism and balance, if you ask me. How much of that is related to injury? I'm not sure. So another thing that I've noticed is he's involved in a lot of missed stunt pickups. I really would not want Noteboom on the same side as Falele for that reason. This is a 3rd and 15, same game against the Rams. There's the stunt that you see. The orange is Clowney, the guy who basically ends up being free. Now, this is not to blame this on Noteboom in this case because he's going through the A gap. It's the guard who's unable to redirect. Pierce is also grabbing a little bit and holding just for a moment, but not enough to necessarily be called. Another wide open receiver. This was a 3rd and 15, 14-yard gain to the tight end on a chip release. Like I said, that one's certainly not Noteboom's fault, but I do wonder about him and Falele being on the same side together. If we were to lose our right tackle for a period of time, that to me would be a difficult situation to try to navigate from an offensive coordinator perspective. Basically, we know Monken wants to leave his tackles one-on-one in pass pro, and that would be a real red flag for me and something I think other teams would take advantage of, him and Falele next to each other. Some positives. Noteboom is really knowledgeable about the amount of time he has in a passing concept, meaning if it's a 3-step versus 5-step. I know most of these are shotgun, so shotgun changes a little bit in terms of a 3-step or 5-step. But in most of these plays, he's got a real high level awareness in with regards to how he attacks or sets up the defensive end with the passing concept that is called, meaning how deep down the field are the routes being run and how does that relate to his set? What can he do to give Stafford enough time to read it and get rid of the football? Even if it looks a little ugly, with Clowney being able to kind of cross chop a little bit with his right arm and get past him, Noteboom is still able to retract the hand enough and then just lean into it because I think he knows Stafford is going to get rid of this ball quick. The other routes you can see have already worked themselves out. Here in the middle of the field, you got a running back off screen to the left-hand side. So I think there's times where Noteboom maybe doesn't look as smooth, and some would give him a quote loss, but I think it's because he understands the concept. He understands how much time Stafford needs to make his decision, and hence he's willing to utilize a particular pass set or jump set, if you will, at times, pseudo jump set, to hold the rusher off long enough for Stafford to make his decision. I think that Noteboom is much more adaptable at right tackle from the right side in one-on-one situations. Not that he's starting for us clearly. In fact, I hope he ends up being our 4th tackle. Well, I hope we have other options, to be honest with you. But it wouldn't surprise me if at some point the Ravens are just securing a player, veteran, who they know what he can do, and seeing how much Vincent and others can progress leading up to training camp, leading up to the start of the season. I understand that I'm being quite pessimistic, but his 2023 film actually looked better, cleaner, quicker than 2024, but particularly at right tackle. Right, some guys are better on one side or the other. In this case, I think there's 2 things happening: the right tackle, left tackle dynamic, and the comparison of 2023 to 2024. Another kind of stunt, TE, ET, whatever. It's across multiple concepts that he struggles. In this case, Van Noy's going to pick the D tackle. Noteboom trying to get out there to Matabike. Another defensive pass interference called. I think this one's on Humphrey. Stafford gets squished between the two of them. So I think that from an overall size and strength perspective, certain guys can carry Noteboom. And look how far he gets carried in here, kind of opening the gate, if you will, somewhat for Matabike. And he also, I think, if you were to say there's a relative weakness in identification, awareness, it may be understanding what an inside move is versus what is going to be a pick, what is going to be a stunt. I wonder about the Ravens' willingness to trust him in one-on-one situations if he does have to get in the game. Seems quite obvious to me we would probably have to adjust our pass pro calls. I posted the 2024 film to my Patreon for anyone who's interested. I'm not going to isolate Noteboom on Twitter like that. The overall views and push that videos get on Twitter seems to be larger than YouTube. They're higher views, if you will. So I actually kind of considered not doing this video because I knew that it would be negative for a Monday morning after 1 week after the draft and after securing an offensive lineman, a veteran who can play. He shows some good reps. But I was really kind of glad in this case I couldn't show the 2024 film. YouTube still has the Content ID system with 2024 films such that you can't show it, and I felt like that film would have reflected far worse. So the negativity that you're getting from me is minimized some because I am able to show 2023 film. Here's another stunt. This one between Clowney and Travis Jones. Clowney's actually not running a pick. He's going underneath. He's hunting a sack. And Noteboom is trying to take over the guard, trying to take over from the guard, excuse me. And you can see Travis Jones, again, it's on the second engagement. First engagement between those two, second one is the rip. He just can't maintain the contact balance and the strength to hold up against Travis Jones. I mean, Travis Jones is a monster. We know that. We want to see him re-signed for long term in Baltimore. I think that Noteboom has some quite clear weaknesses with the second engagement and also with stunts. The athleticism is good, but at this level, it's lacking in some of those situations, in my opinion. I do have one other game's worth of film. It's from the same year, but earlier in the season, week 4 against the Colts. If you recall, Indianapolis came to Baltimore and beat us in overtime, double overtime maybe. 1916, 22-19, something in that regard. Their defense, if you recall, was really fast, aggressive. And I thought that he actually played well in this one from week 4 of 2023 as a left tackle, in fact. So perhaps that lends credence to the fact that it was his 2024 film being far inferior in my eyes is more so due to injury and less so related to playing left tackle versus right tackle. Unbelievable catch from Nakua over the middle. Noteboom is at left tackle, and I will give you the all-22 angle of this one. I do think at times he's kind of grabby in pass pro in his initial engagement, but no more so or less so than other tackles who are left one-on-one. Here he's clearly been able to stop the charge, get his hands on the inside underneath. Not generally going to call that on the right hand. The left hand would be the one that I think if you were trying to ask for a hold to be called, you would say, well, here's the ref right here, and he's seeing it, but it's just he's already stopped the charge. So from that manner, they're allowing the contact to occur. Like I said, I don't think he does it any more or less than other tackles that are left out there one-on-one. I think on the stunt situation, and you're going to see it here in a moment, he kind of gets too far down towards the center, meaning he gets sold that a D end is really just going for an inside move and it's not a stunt. There's no delayed second portion to it. Again, referencing that athleticism. I don't know how the Ravens, clear that up versus some of the things we're going to see, but here's an example of it. It's a 3rd and long. The D end is the yellow line, and 52 is going to be the looper, the second guy around. Asking for a hold to be called. I don't know if it should be called or not. But in any case, you can see that he carries down really far, tries to redirect because he knows it's coming, and he just can't get to the outside quick enough. It's a little bit unrealistic there. Don't get me wrong. And as an aside, I kind of wish that I had the Rams sideline view of that play because if you think they're going and complaining and bitching a lot about pass interference calls in the Baltimore game, I can only imagine the histrionics that are on their sideline on that one when Stafford gets hit, which it did get called. 3rd and 13, he scrambles for 6 yards. Like I said, I think this film from the Colts game, it surprised me a little at left tackle. If Emory Jones were to actually move to guard, I'm a little worried about our depth at tackle because Vincent just doesn't appear ready from what I've seen on film. I'm not saying there's not talent there at all. But because of Noteboom's inefficiencies, if you ask me, on second engagements and dealing with stunts, I would worry about if Noteboom had to get in the game in 2025, who would be the next guy behind him? Because of his propensity to be injured so often, what are the chances that he gets in the game and plays 4, 5, 6 games in a row and doesn't suffer an injury on his own? That lower leg issue, those lower leg issues seem to be persistent across seasons. Super well timed, deep out route to I think Von Jefferson. I do think that in the run game he would be an interesting guy next to a high level guard. he was next to a Zeitler, someone who's really good at comboing and they can interpret and read the second level and move up quickly. I think that would be an interesting situation because he's very under control. He's quick. In the limited film I have watched, I think I've watched 6 games and maybe a little bit of a 7th. So 4 games from 2024, 2 from 2023. He does seem to be a guy who combos well. Now, this play is kind of a gimme, if you ask me. It's a Jill ISO scheme. So Jill means the tight end is blocking out, and the wide receiver, in this case, Nakua, is taking over on the inside. But at left tackle, Noteboom is taking over a defensive tackle who is trying to stay in the B gap, and the guard's doing a really nice job of comboing and then working up to the second level. And you can see Nakua gets to the safety, or DB corner, excuse me. And Kyron Williams is able to cut it off there. If you're interested, the Jill designation means tight end. And then H, or wide receiver, Z, whatever you want to call him. Jack would be the other way, is the receiver trying to dig out that defensive end, and the tight end working right directly up to the corner. Oftentimes you used to see that on run plays away, but now teams are really into still kind of jilling it, but the receiver working in this direction and still trying to cut off this defender from moving in that direction. Forgive me if that was too many lines on the screen and a poor explanation. I feel like from a Noteboom standpoint, that's really a gimme. The defensive tackle was trying to stay in B gap and had his back turned, so really it was easy to ride him out of there. Like I said earlier, maybe the health is more of an issue than the 2023 versus 2024 film. I did think as a left tackle, he's more shuffly, and what I mean by that, I'm going to show you this example from the All-22 in the end zone, is his cleats spend less time in the air at left tackle. And that can be a good thing depending on the type of set and the type of rusher that he's dealing with. We never know what the game plan was against certain guys, but he just seems very shuffly as a left tackle. The cleats don't get in the air very much, and they don't spend much time in the air at all. They're generally connected to the ground, short, quick, choppy steps. Same play from the end zone angle, so same pass set. Noteboom at left tackle, like I said, dealing with a little bit of a bull rush and mistimed strike by the defensive end. Another great throw over the middle. I think that's Julius Brents on the challenge there over the middle. Overall, I think that it's a good thing to bring in a veteran tackle, especially at this time of year. About as good as you can get with a guy with anyone who's available, right? I get that. So there's some good film as well. And I tried to show some of to bring balance. I feel like if Jones is moving to guard, which Harbaugh has said, this shouldn't be our third tackle. This should be our fourth. In a perfect world, right? In a perfect world, we have a more readily available, healthy guy than Noteboom, but we're getting a veteran who knows how to deal with pass pro and one-on-one situations, which we know Monken is going to do often. I get it. If we had a situation where one of our tackles went down and this was the player to come in, who's next up after that? So the Emory Jones decision, guard versus tackle, I think is important. My concern would be that. What does the depth look like if Noteboom is our third guy and Emory Jones is a guard? Maybe Emory Jones tries to play guard and tackle or practice at it. I don't know. Perhaps I'm being harsh and my standard is too high, but we just went through a draft where I think over 250 players were selected. We had 11 of them. Maybe my number is wrong there, but the point is we had a lot of shots to take. And we took a guard, a tackle in Emory Jones, a tackle in Vincent, and then the guard later on in the draft, Dellinger from LSU. So if you were to look at our draft in 2025 in isolation, say, Coach, I think we addressed offensive line enough along with this signing. I choose not to look at it in isolation. So we could have upgraded guard in the 2024 draft, and we did not. So as a result, my evaluation of this is a little bit more harsh than others, probably a little bit more harsh than yours. I think the Ravens are universally lauded as one of the best front offices in the NFL and pro sports, deservedly so. I agree with much or all of that in most cases. At this moment, having to sign Noteboom makes me wonder if one of two things is happening. If we're not a step behind in putting together a high-level offensive line again, and so we had to take who was available, or if the reality is this is just a signing from now until training camp / regular season to see how Vincent and Jones develop as tackles and whether or not we actually need a veteran, quote, swing tackle like a Joe Noteboom. I'm not saying we do or don't. I actually like the player, but his availability and the fact that his availability during the season is clearly a concern, and the fact that he was available now also is a little bit of a red flag to me. Nonetheless, I do hope that things work out for him and he's able to stay healthy and help the Ravens if he was to see time. But I can't help but think that perhaps we missed an opportunity in the 2025 NFL draft and the one a year before to create a more high quality offensive line with depth such that we didn't need to sign a guy like this in the first place. You're welcome to let me know what you think of those thoughts or any of the plays that I tried to break down. And if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this discussion and film study of Joe Noteboom, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.